Monday, May 4th meeting of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hold on 1 second, Mary. It's just loading. Sorry, give me
Okay.
1 second. Call the roll.
Okay. I would like to call to order the Monday, May 4th meeting of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood,
Here.
Alder Thomas,
Here.
Mayor O'Connor,
Here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 20th?
So moved.
Second.
I had one question, I think, couple questions. In the, under Mark's report, Finance Director Hautaker reported, and then there's several numbered items. The maximum, the key city number 3, the maximum the city can keep for tourism is 20,000. Isn't that 200 and some thousand?
Yeah, our portion this year is 202.
202. Okay. So did you find that, Joan?
yes, I did.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There are no appearances that I can see anyway. No unfinished business. First item under new business, item 6A, consideration of resolution 20-5-2405, providing for the sale of $2,900,000 in water system and sewer system revenue bonds, series 2020B. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
Mark, are you gonna?
Yeah, I will take this. This is the, this is the authorization for Jeff Belangi to start the process, and he'd be here back at the next meeting. So what this is borrowing $2.9 million. What it relates to 2 separate things here. One is the 2020 capital. We already borrowed for the general obligation portion. Now this is the water and sewer portion. And that total amount is $1,260,000. That amount is arrived at, for the water, it's $4,000. We had originally in the 2020 budget, $900,000 set aside for meters. As of right now, we haven't heard back from the PSC. So the thought process, we don't want to borrow for that money yet until we know what's going on with the PSC. But we still have to borrow because we're starting to work on the McKenna Road, so we need money to pay those bills when they start to come due here. So we are redoing some refinancing later in the year related to some TIF stuff. So if we do get approved by the PSC, the thought process is there that we could add that in there as part of that borrowing. So that's 900,000 what's subtracted out of that budget. If you're looking at the budget book, you'll notice there's why that's the difference between the water and what we thought we'd borrow. Also, we had some reductions related to McKenna Road. Bids that came in lower for the water and the sewer. So that was adjusted for that. And there was some savings from last year, some unspent proceeds where projects came in less than they were. So total borrowing related to the new money, which is the 2020 capital, is $1,260,000. And then we had a 5-year ban for some sewer work back in 2017, which is coming due next year. The thought process with the low rates right now is to roll that in together in one loan. So that gets, and that's 965 is related to water, 675 is related to sewer. So refinance that and save some interest. So the total borrowing is $2.900,000. I can't even say it anymore. $2,900,000. Sorry.
Any questions? Hearing none. Joan, do you need a roll call for this?
Not for the authorization.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 6B, consideration of resolution 20-5-2404, approval of participation in a Wisconsin Bureau of Transportation Safety Grant. And this is the 2020 Speed Grant Task Force. Is there a motion to approve this?
So move.
Second.
Wally?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. From my basement with my dog
Very good.
down here. She was going a little crazy. I had to mute for a second. This is a speed grant for $5,000. Initially, based on what's happening in the world, I was not very interested in it, but then the Department of Transportation came back and they're not mandating that we write actual tickets per hour like we have before. They're not that there was a quota, but there was, you had to meet certain requirements for the grant. So we had to write actual tickets. Now they're looking more for visibility, a lot of warnings. If there is a speeder that's really going extremely fast, then we expect them to be cited. But it's more visibility and warnings to people. They feel that once the stay-at-home order gets lifted, that once people get on the road, they're just going to start tearing it up pretty good. So based on that, we surveyed the other agencies that are in our group, and everybody was of the consensus of yes, let's put in for the grant. If we don't do it, if say once we get into June and July, it's not being used, then we just don't take the money. But we'll at least put the paperwork in and be prepared for it.
Questions, anyone? I was just somewhere yesterday, Wally, where people were talking about how much faster everyone seems to be going who is driving. I don't know if it's because there isn't as much traffic on the roads or what, but. Okay, if no one has any questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, item 6C, consideration of resolution 20-3-2398, approving facility use agreement with Monona Farmers Market. I don't think that this is in your packets, but
It's in the council packet. And then there was,
it is in the council. Well, if we sent a revised version to you by separate email this afternoon, so. There was just one line change, wasn't there, Brian?
that's correct.
In that, so. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Jake?
Yeah, so a couple months ago with Park Board, we went through a revised facility use contract with Monona Farmers Market, extended out to a 5-year facility use agreement. So we try to get all of our bigger user of our facilities, some are on 1 year, some are on longer terms, given the standing of Monona's Farmers Market has had, kind of kept the same criteria that we've had over the last couple of years in the same boat from the Park and Rec Board perspective. A few minor changes, and of course this year we needed to add some language in there for potential restrictions due to pandemics or health or safety concerns over the participants. And that was what was noted in the email earlier today. So I think as I'm looking through it, nothing else is major other than continuing to provide the market at Ahuska Park, having access to the storage room for equipment, and no fee.
And maybe at the council meeting, you can go explain a little bit about what they're planning on doing, Jake. Deal with COVID.
Sure.
Are they still are they planning on opening on the 31st?
The 31st is what their public health plan had put on as a start date, and what I'd be recommending as well.
Yeah, okay.
Start date.
Does anybody have any questions for Jake about this?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, item 6D, discussion and update on staffing, budgetary, and city operations contingency plans for COVID-19. This isn't anything we're going to vote on, but so Brian, do you want to?
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about this more during the council meeting, but I asked Jake to be on tonight's meeting just to provide high level kind of what's been going on in the Park and Rec standpoint, what are some of their initial thoughts are on Park and Rec's programming for the summer based upon the information that we know today. Obviously, knowing that that could change at any time with different orders or the lawsuit that's currently pending at the state Supreme Court. So we'll get to that later in the council meeting. What I have in the packet for discussion tonight is just what I'll call the last extension of our staffing plan. If you recall, the last couple of council meetings, we've had a staffing plan where we've continued the normal pay and benefits schedule for all employees, regardless of classification, through this pandemic. I'm recommending that we extend it one more time to June 2nd, which would hopefully get us to presumably when the order will be lifted. And at that time, we can reevaluate if we need to do anything differently from a staffing standpoint. But there hasn't been a ton of major changes since the last council meeting, which we discussed this, other than I started to bring back more staff to kind of normal work environments as it makes sense and as it's safe. So for example, Public Works Department is bringing on more of the street crew guys to start some of the typical spring activities. Other staff are kind of rotating in the office for portions of the week, working from home, other portions of the week as it makes sense. So as we get hopefully closer to the end of the order, we'll get everyone back full staff when it's safe to do so. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have on the staffing plan.
Anyone? Doug?
Yeah, not a question, but just a comment. I was just looking at the news right before we came on, and there's some reports about much higher case numbers and deaths potentially, although the reporting didn't seem that rock solid. But I did see that the IHME, the University of Washington model that has been heavily relied on, has basically doubled their fatalities estimate by August 4th to 134,000. So.
Yeah. And some of that, I imagine, may be related to some of these states that are just kind of totally reopening, but
yeah, I was trying to quickly scan through their update notes, and it seemed like they've changed how they're doing the modeling as they learn more as they go along. But yeah, I kind of wanted that too, because I know their assumptions have been that those stay-at-home restrictions would stay in place. So anyway.
yeah. And we may be hearing a change sooner rather than later, depending on what happens with the Supreme Court here.
Right. Yeah.
So did they attribute any of that to increased testing?
I
Well-
would think that's part of it too, wouldn't you, Doug?
Well, they're modeling, they're talking about the number of deaths. So that's not going to be testing. We're definitely seeing more cases, I think, right now, because they are finally doing a lot more testing. And I know the state is focused on the percentage change in the percentage change of positive tests. That's what the 14-day decline is looking at, is for that to come down. And it's pretty steady around 10%, which is actually about half or a little more than half of the national average.
Well, I talked to a local Mononan who was sick for 10 days, had a fever for 9 days, called his doctor, and they did a telephone call with a doctor in Iowa, and they couldn't test him. They never tested him. And I think I have no faith in the numbers of cases anymore, because you have to be on death's door or needing an intubator if you are going to get a test. So you can have it. I mean, all the symptoms of it, be sicker than a dog and not get a test. So I have no faith in knowing how many people have it.
I think that's true. I think that they are testing more people in that circumstance than they were for a while, but it still isn't what it should be. I agree. Well, Doug, your daughter was never officially tested when she was diagnosed. So I suppose this is putting private information in public.
That's okay.
But she didn't actually get a test to start with, did she?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, she did? Okay.
Sort of knew by at that point that it was going to be positive, or at least I thought so. She did finally test negative late last week. So
And that was about 7 weeks later, wasn't it? 6
Yeah.
weeks? Wow.
6.5. Yeah.
No, I agree, Kathy. Between that and people not showing symptoms, walking around with it, it's really scary. Wally, do you know when you're going to be thinking of moving the police officers back to their regular shifts? Is that the end of May, maybe, or?
We're looking at May 15th. It kind of depends what happens in this court ruling too. So, but right now we're looking at May 15th.
Okay. Doug or Kathy, did you have anything else?
Oh,
Brian, did you want to? I didn't know if, are you talking about budget more at council or?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to say about the budget is, so we are starting to, obviously May, kind of the traditional start of the budget cycle for 2021. What we're asking staff to do is take a look at some different scenarios for how we want to craft the 2021 budget with some different assumptions. Again, understanding that the COVID-19 situations may have an impact on our budget and what we can accomplish in next year. So we'll be doing that from an operational standpoint and also taking a hard look at our capital budget, the things we had in 2021 scheduled, and what of those things might be possible to push off to future years to provide us some breathing room. So we'll have more information on that for the committee and the full council in the coming weeks, but that's some analysis that we're starting right now.
so
Kathy?
Jake, if you have any interest in doing anything at the gazebo, I think the ladies have some money, and so they could pay for stain, flowers, whatever. If you, I mean, I don't know what your plans are. I don't know if you're going to do anything. I think we're not going to do much down there, but we have some money, which I think we would part with to do some improvements if you want to do some.
Sounds good, Kathy. I'll chat with you offline.
Okay,
I got two things, if that's okay.
Mark? Yep.
I got two things. One is a question is, right now with the order, we're not, for utility purposes, we are not allowed to shut off. We don't charge interest or penalties on water bills. So a question came up with some customers is what we're going to do after the order is lifted, and PSC tells us it's okay to start doing the shutoffs and charging interest. We kind of talked about this internally. One is if you don't pay it, it just goes on your tax. It goes on your tax bill at the end of the year. So orders, if you do, it's going to be a lot of shutoffs. Right now, at this time, we usually average about 2 to 3% of delinquency right now. And the most recent, after this last billing collections, we're at 10%. So the next portion we have is residential. So I assume that number is going to grow. And we bill quarterly, so those bills are pretty high every quarter, just because it's quarters. So I don't know if that's the thought process is we don't shut them off and just put it on the tax roll. It does, has a little bit of effect on our cash flow, but we still have enough cash flow to pay our bills on the utility side. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is we got notification from the county with property taxes. Property taxes we collect the property taxes through January 31st. After that, the county takes over collection of property taxes. Now the new legislation, the counties can waive interest and penalties as of, I believe, April 1st. With Dane County, they're due June 30th. So I talked to the county, what the process is. We'd have a resolution waiving any principal and interest for Monona residents if we want. What that does, it extends their collection to, I believe, September 30th. And then the county would settle in full in October. So we usually settle in full from the county as of August. This will delay it to October doing that process. So
And the county actually gets those penalties and fees, correct? We don't.
correct. We don't get any of that. That's all county. Yep. So they come-
But we have to have, the county board is passing, you might have seen that on the news today, is going to consider a resolution approving that tonight. And in order for Monona residents not to have to get the extension, we also have to approve a resolution, even though we don't get the penalties or anything. But so we're thinking we'll have that on the next agenda on May 18th. So I assume we probably would want to do that. So be thinking about it.
Yeah, that's all I have. And our next meeting I'll have, since we'll have the, April bank statements and every activity, I'll have an update on where we're at financially. So we'll have that the next meeting.
Great, great.
I have a question, question for Mark, following up on, with regard to the water bills. We're waiving the late fees and interest.
Currently we are, because that's a PSC. PSC handed that down. I think it came from the governor to waive those charges.
And does that mean they're waived completely, or would those penalties and interest come due later, or is that a permanent, like they're waived, gone?
They're waived, gone until the order comes back, say you can start charging that. So there's no like accruing interest or penalty.
Okay.
So when do they have to pay it?
We assume they're, we have the bills out, they have their regular due date, so we're hoping everybody still pays on time. But like I said, our delinquency is going up, so we're at 10% right now.
Anything else for Mark? So Brian, did you want, Jake was going to give an update, or?
You can do it now, or we can wait till the full council.
I had one more question to follow up with Mark, if I could, on the water. You talked about not shutting water off and letting it go on the tax bills. Is that something that we have the authority to do from PSC? Is that an option, or we have to take some action to make that happen, or?
No, that's an annual thing.
Okay.
Delinquency is always going to, it's a 10, I don't know what the PSC is going to do, but there's, if you let it go onto tax roll, there's a 10% penalty. So most people don't want that 10% penalties. So I don't know if the PSC is going to waive that statute or not, that 10%. If they wait to go on a tax roll, as of right now, I assume there's a 10% penalty.
Right. Okay.
And are they informed of that ahead of time? In some kind of notice we send them that they might get a 10% penalty?
Yeah, we send a letter out. It's required. So we send it out to everybody who meets that threshold at the time.
Okay.
Do we have the option to waive the 10%?
That I do not know, because it's right now it's part of the state statute. So I don't know if the PSC will waive that or not. That'd be something that the state does.
I would be interested if you could check with them on that.
Sure.
Anything else for Mark or Brian? And Jake, if you want to wait and just do your update once at council, that'd be fine. Okay, well, I guess we have one more item. Item E, approval of funds for Renew Monona Home Loan for Tamor Sardar, 615 West Dean Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this?
So move.
Second.
Brian?
Thank you. This was an item that came to the last CDA meeting, request for our Renew Monona Loan Program. Request was for, I believe it was $7,202, basically for some work, waterproofing a basement, installation of a sump pump, and the electrical work that's needed to make that project work. The applicant appeared before CDA, kind of gave the rundown of the application, and CDA was, I would call it glowing in their recommendation of approval for it, because it's the type of project that we really want to fund with the Renew Monona program. So staff supportive of it, CDA supportive of it. So we just need finance personnel's authorization to send the funds.
Any questions? No, we did have a motion, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, hearing none, Joan, do you want a roll call for this?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Motion passes. Finally, acceptance of general fund accounts payable checks dated April 17th to the 30th, 2020. Documentation of invoices paid is available in the city clerk's office. Mark.
Yeah, there's not a lot of activity going on. I just want to hit a couple of things. Page 32, Boundary Medical. This is for the EMS, but you can see there's a lot of disinfectant. This is the COVID-19. We are tracking invoices that are related to COVID-19. Page 33, Falcon Energy Circles. This is our first quarter payment for the solar right now. A lot of stuff. Page 36.
I had a question about page 35. Why is the Huska shelter $1,200, or is that a carryover from last year or for water?
I'm not sure why it's so high. I'll have to look into it.
So I assume there isn't water running there, is there?
I assume there's not. I don't know.
Last several months, probably.
Right.
Is that for the first quarter water
Yeah.
bill?
That doesn't seem right, but
No, because we pull the meter, so
I'll have to
we
talk
actually
to
don't have meters installed during that period.
Yeah, we'll look into it and figure that. Could be the stormwater, but I don't know if that's.
okay. Okay, go on.
Page was it 36, is it architecture planning? That's the Woodland Park, starting that process. I think that's. I have a lot. There is one thing that on page 44, there's this Jerry transmission service. It was an ambulance repair for the 13,000. It was a timing issue. The books for 2019 are closed, but it's related to 2019. We received the money from our insurance. So it's going to look weird on our financials for this year because we're going to see the money in 19, but the expense is not hitting in 20. So there's a timing issue when we paid it and when we got the insurance money.
Is that the new ambulance?
Yes, they backed into something.
Oh,
2019. I think that's all page, the next page, page 40, 46, page 46. Strand, they're just kind of finishing up their Gateway Green, Winnequa Park Lagoon, the library HVAC, and the leaf correction. There are three kind of four big projects they're kind of working on right now, along with some other ones. So that's all I have.
okay. Any questions about the bills? Alder Thomas.
Just curious, on page 37, there's a generator repair that's $18,000.
Yeah.
What kind of generator do we have that costs $18,000 to fix?
It was part of the capital. It's part of the, I don't know if it's actually probably should repair, it's a replacement, and I can't remember if it's the water or sewer generator replacement. It was part of the 2020 capital budget.
Okay,
So it was approved capital. Maybe the wording's a little different. It's an actual new generator.
Anything else? Is there a motion to accept the bills?
Move to accept the bills.
second,
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Bills are accepted. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move,
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. And I think we